I'm sorry, but it's true. Some fantasy authors are giving us lazy writing, using the same tired fantasy tropes that we've seen again and again. We deserve better. Welcome to Fantasy for the Ages. I'm Jim, the father of this show, and thanks for joining me. A fantasy trope. It's a theme in fantasy fiction that we see again and again and again. Today, I'll be highlighting 5 specific tropes that have been used to death and need to be retired for good. Every fantasy trope started out at one point as a fresh, new, great idea. Someone had to come up with it first. The problem is, after it worked for one person, then dozens of other people decide, hey, I can do that too. It's going to be great in my story. And for a while, it does work. But eventually, overused ideas become tropes. And they start killing what could have been great stories because it makes them predictable, unoriginal, and frankly, rather boring. There's so much fantasy fiction available these days that I am sure it's got to be hard for a fantasy author to come up with fresh, new ideas, to put their own fresh spin on things. Just about everything feels like it's been done. But if you want my interest and you want my money, you've got to earn it. Give me something new, something I haven't seen before. Here's a look at what I consider the 5 most annoying fantasy tropes that we have seen so many times that just need to stop. They need to go away. Number 1, medievalism. Want to write fantasy? Put your story in a medieval Western European setting, populated with kings and queens, nobles and serfs, knights, dragons, and unicorns. Even many stories that aren't actually in anything close to a real medieval Western Europe can still feel like it. They've got all the commonalities. Tolkien's The Lord of the Rings is a great example of this style, though that was back in the 1950s. It was by no means a trope when Tolkien did it. But so many others have repeated it because, hey, it worked for him. Nowadays, there are so many other rich cultures you should be paying attention to. You should try to use in your fantasy. Stop with Western Europe and medievalism. Number 2, the chosen one. A boy or a young man in a quiet village is visited by a mysterious stranger and led off on a quest that is absolutely necessary in order to save the village, his family, the kingdom, the world. Come on, The Hobbit, The Belgariad, The Wheel of Time. Many great fantasy stories and series have leaned hard into this trope. And while those are great stories, it's now been done. Plenty. More? Doing it again? Number 3, just the quest. This is similar to The Chosen One, but it doesn't focus just on one chosen character, but rather it's about this necessary journey that someone or some group of people need to go on in order to accomplish some difficult task or other. Great trials, temptations, and terrors will need to be overcome in order to save the day. The Shannara series comes to mind, doing this over and over the course of this over 30-book series. The destruction of the One Ring by Frodo is certainly a quest. Even Percy Jackson and the Lightning Thief is quest-driven. It's time to retire this baby, or at least freshen it up somehow. My 4th one, the tragic or mysterious backstory. Not all tropes are the bedrock of a fantasy novel. Some are just overused elements. More often than not, amongst a cast of core characters in a fantasy tale, at least one of them has this horrific past that they don't want to talk about, or which defines nearly all of their perspectives or actions. Harry Potter is a classic example. Multiple characters from George R. R. Martin's A Song of Ice and Fire fall into this category, and I could go on, but I won't because it's tired. And number 5, the magical boarding school trope. This is one of the more recent of these tropes, though it has been around long enough to have been done to death now. Again, Harry Potter took it mainstream, but it's been copied over and over. The King Killer Chronicle, The Poppy War, The Book of the Ancestor, The Magician's Trilogy. Heck, even very recently, the Empyrean series. Rebecca Yarrow's Iron Flame and its sequel. They're doing it all over again. Stick a fork in it. It's done. I'm not saying an author can't write a great story using one or more of these tropes, but it takes more work to make it fresh. We need the story to still be a little unpredictable. Maybe subvert the trope. Don't just give us what we've seen before. We are tired of that. We want something new. Basically, we don't want the ring destroyed anymore. Let's find a way to do something different. I don't know. Perhaps Frodo can just keep the stinking ring and rule the world, kicking Sauron to the curb and making Gandalf his errand boy. I mean, at least it would be different. I'm going to keep reading fantasy fiction. So are you. Authors, we're looking at you. Just asking. Make it new. Do it different. Be creative. We're counting on you. Let me know your thoughts on fantasy tropes down in the comments. Which tropes are your pet peeves that you can't stand anymore? Or do you have some tropes that you really enjoy and bring it? You'd like more. I'll read all your comments. I always look forward to seeing them and I will respond. Thanks for watching. Please like and subscribe, and we'll talk to you next time.